This is the slave narrative of Sarah Gudger. African American slavery in the United States ended in 1865. In the 1930s, the U.S. federal government sent interviewers to interview African Americans who were previously enslaved. This was called the Federal Writers Project. By the time they were interviewed, the slaves were either in their 70s, 80s, 90s, or hundreds. Many of those who were still alive told their story, and sometimes their pictures were taken. This is the story of Sarah Gudger. Small in stature, about 5 feet tall, Aunt Sarah is rounded in face and body. She has a milk chocolate face that's surmounted by short and sparse milky white hair. She is somewhat deaf but understands questions about her and responds with animation. She's lame in the right leg and walks with one crutch. On events that happened long ago, her mind is quite clear. At the time of this interview, she was said to be about 121 years old. When she recalled the Confederate soldiers marching to the drums, she beat her cane on the floor to demonstrate. She crossed her hands when she described how the slaves were whipped for infractions. Owen Gudger, Asheville, North Carolina's postmaster from 1913 to 1921, said that he has been quite acquainted with Aunt Sarah all of his life and has heard her talk about her age and early associations, and her accounts of the Gudger and Hemphill families coincide with facts about the families. Sarah was interviewed by the Federal Writers Project on May 5, 1937, and was eager to talk, needing little prompting. Sarah Gudger was born September 15, 1816, about 2 miles from Old Fort on Old Morganton Road in North Carolina. These are the words of Aunt Sarah. I sure had a hard life, just work and work and work. I never known nothing but work. My boss, he was old man Andy Hemphill. He had a large plantation in the valley. Plenty of everything, all kind of stock, hogs, cows, mules, and horses. When Master Andy died, I went to live with his son, William Hemphill. My pappy, he lived with Joe Gudger. I remember Joe was old and feeble. He depended on my pappy to see after everything for him. One morning, he followed pappy to the field. Pappy stopped working, and old Master Joe said, "Well, Smart," my pappy's name was Smart, "I tell you, Smart, I have a good mind to put myself away. I have a good mind to drown myself right here. I feel worried, Smart." Pappy took a hold of old Master Joe and led him to the house. Pappy said, "Now, Master Joe, I wouldn't talk such talk if I was you. You've been good to your family. Just content yourself and rest." A few days after that, Pappy found Master Joe hanging in the barn. He put himself away. I never known what it was to rest. I used to work all day from morning to late at night. I had to do everything there was to do on the outside, work in the field, chop wood, and hoe corn, till sometimes I feel like my back was going to break. I done everything except split rails. You know, they used to split rails back in them days. Well, I never did split no rails. Old Master strop us good if we did anything he didn't like. Sometimes he'd get up and we don't look around at him, or else he'd tie your hands in front of your body and whip you just like you was a mule. Lord, honey, I took 1,000 lashes in my day. Sometimes my poor old body would be sore for a week. Old boss, he sent us slaves out in any kind of weather, rain or snow, it didn't matter. We had to go to the mountains, cut wood, and drag it to the house. Many times we come in with our clothes stuck to our poor old cold bodies, but wasn't no use trying to get 'em dry. If the old boss or mistress, his wife, see us trying to get dry, they yell, "Get out of here, you black thing, and get your work out of the way." Lord, honey, we knowed to get, or else we get the lash. They didn't care how old or young you was never too big to get the lash. The rich white folks never did no work. They had the slaves do it for 'em. In the summer, we had to work outdoors. In the winter, we worked in the house. I had to sear and spin till 10 o'clock. Never did get much rest. Had to get up at 4 in the morning and start again. Didn't get much to eat either, just a little cornbread and molasses. Lord, honey, you can't know what a time I had. All cold and hungry. No, ma'am, I ain't telling no lies. It's the gospel truth, it sure is. I remember well how I used to lie awake till all the folks was sleeping, then creep out the door and walk barefoot in the snow about 2 miles to my old auntie's house. I know when I get there, she fixed hot corn pole or cornbread with slices of meat and some milk for me to eat. My auntie was good to us. I never sleep on a bedstead till after freedom. No, ma'am. till after freedom, just an old pile of rags in a corner, hardly enough to keep us from freezing. Lord, child, nobody knows how mean slaves were treated. Why, they was better to the animals than to us. My first old master was a good old man, but my last one was rapid. Yeah, he was rapid. Well, child, times ain't no more like they used to be. In my day and time, the folks worked. If they had no slaves, they worked themselves. If they had children who were too small to hoe, they pulled weeds. Now, the big bottom of the Swananoa that used to grow bushels of grain is just a playground. I like to see the children in the fields. Why, now they fight you like wildcats, even if they're even talked about. That's the reason time's so hard. No family. Why, I can remember old Mrs. She say, this generation will pass away and a new generation come along. That's just it. Every generation gets weaker and weaker. Then they talk about going back to old times. That time done gone. They never meet that time again. Wasn't none of the slaves often on our plantation ever sold away, but the ones on the other plantation of Morris William was. Oh, that was a horrible time. All the slaves in the field plowing, hoeing, singing in the boiling sun. Old master, he come through the field with a man they call the speculator. They walk around just looking, just looking. All the slaves know what this means. They didn't dare even look up, just work right on. Then the speculator, he see who he want. He talked to old master, then they put the handcuffs on him and take him away to the cotton country. Oh, them was awful times. When the speculator was ready to go off with the slaves, if there was any ones that didn't want to go, he thrashed them till they say they go without no trouble. Sometimes some of them run off and then come back to the plantation. Then it was harder on them than before. When the slaves went to dinner, the old slave mammy would say, where is such and such? And none of the others wanted to tell her. But when she'd see the slaves look down to the ground, she'd just say, the speculator, the speculator. Then the tears rolled down her cheeks because maybe it's her son or her husband, and she knows she'll never see them again. Maybe they sold away from the babies at home, Pappy and Mammy. Oh man, Lordy, my old boss was mean, but he never sent us to the cotton country. There were very few skills back in the day, anytime, very few. We didn't even look at no book, not even to pick one up. Old Missy, this is my first old mistress. She was a good woman, not like the other white folk. We like old Missy. She read to us and the white children. She come from across the water. She wasn't like the smart white folks living here now. When she come over here, she brought a dark slave boy with her. He was her personal servant. Of course, they got different names for them now, but in those days, they called them guinea slaves. She was a good old woman, not like the other white folks. Slaves liked her. When the slaves got sick, they was put in a little old house close to the big house, and one of the other slaves waited on them. There were very few doctors then, only 3 in the whole section. When they wanted medicine, they went in the woods and gathered herbs for poultices and teas. All these herbs bring you round. There were very few lawyers then too, but lawsy me, you can't turn for 'em now. I remember when old Mammy died. She lived on Reams Creek with the other hemp hills. She was sick a long time. One day a white man come to see me. He said, Sarah, did you know your mammy was dead? No, I say, but I wants to see my mother before they put her away. I went to the house and say to the old mistress, my mother, she died today. I want to go see her before they put her away. But she looked at me mean and she said, get out of here and get back to your work before I wallop you good. So I went back to my work with the tears streaming down my face, just wringing my hands. I wanted to see my mammy so much. About 2 weeks later, old mistress, she got terrible sick. She just lingered for a long time, but she never got up no more. Wasn't long after that, they put her away too, just like my mammy. I remember a time when my mammy was alive. I was a small child before they took her to Ream Creek. All us children was playing in the yard one night, just running around playing like children will. All of a sudden, Mammy come to the door all excited. Come in here this minute, she said. Just look up at what is happening. And bless your life, honey, the stars was falling just like rain. Mammy was terrible scared, but we children weren't afraid. No, we weren't afraid. But Mammy, she said that every time a star falls, somebody's gonna die. Looked like a lot of folks was gonna die from the look of them stars. Everything was just as bright as day. You could have picked a pin up, you know. The stars don't shine as bright as they did back then. I wonder why they don't. They just don't shine as bright. What Aunt Sarah is describing likely occurred in 1833 when there was a meteor shower that was visible all over North America. Here's an article about it. It wasn't long after they took Mammy away, and I was left alone. On the plantation was an old woman who the boss bought from a drove up in Virginia. The boss, he bought her from one of the speculators. She laughed and tell us, "Some of these days y'all gonna be free just like the white folks." But we all laugh at her. "No, we just slaves. We always have to work and never be free." Then when freedom comes, she said, "I told y'all, now you got no learning. You got nothing. Got no home. What you gonna do? Didn't I tell you?" I was getting along smartly in years when freedom came. I remember just like it was yesterday, just before the war. Master William was talking to his brother. I was standing off a bit. Master's brother, he said, "William, how old is Aunt Sarah now?" Master William looked at me and said, "She's getting nigh on to 50. That was just a little bit before the war. That was an awful time. Us slaves didn't know what it was all about. Only one of the boys from the plantation went. It was Alexander. He was about 25 then. Many of the time, we got word the Yankees were coming. We took our food and stock and hid it until we were sure they were gone. We weren't bothered much. One day, I'll never forget, we looked out and saw soldiers marching. Looked like the whole valley was full of them. I thought, poor helpless critters just going away to get killed. The drums was beating and the fifes playing. They were the foot company. Oh, glory, it was a sight. Sometime they come home on furlough. Sometime they get killed before they get through. Alexander, he come home a few times before freedom. When the war was over, Master William said, "Did you know you all is free? You free now." I chuckled, remembering what that old woman told us about freedom and no learning. A lot of men wanted me to go to foreign land, but I told them I'll go live with my pappy as long as he's alive. I stayed with the white folks about 12 months. Then I stayed with my pappy for as long as he lived. I had two brothers. They went to California. I never seen them no more, not my sister either. I can't remember much about it all. I just know I was born and bred here in these parts, never been out of it. I'm well, never took no doctor's medicine. I just been sick once, and that was after freedom. Thank you for sharing your story with us, Aunt Sarah. Rest in peace. If you'd like to hear more slave narratives, please subscribe and click the notification bell to be notified when they're uploaded. You can also log onto my website, burksbooks.com, and purchase my ebook that has real pictures of slaves and tells many other slave narratives.